How many of you are married in the house today? Dating someone? Anybody dating someone? All right, like how many of you like date nights? All right, 3 of you do. Fantastic, that's good. All right, the altar will be open at the end of the service. You can come and pray. All right, date nights are great because I love my kids. We have 4 kids, and I absolutely love my kids. But I'm just going to tell you right now, I love spending alone time with my wife without hearing things from my kids in those moments. And the truth is, my kids are going to grow up and they're going to be gone. And maybe they'll call me sometime, I hope. I hope. If not, I'll just call them and it won't matter. But here's the thing. But I'm going to be with my wife a long time after they're gone out of my house. And so we try to schedule date nights and we'll get babysitters, or we're blessed to have family in town. And so we have sets of our parents who are willing to watch our kids. And so last night, Katie's parents decided that they were going to do a date night for us to have the kids stay over. So guess what? Sleepover time. Like, that's not just any regular date night. That's like extendo date night. That's awesome stuff, right? And so here's the thing. I'm going to say this throughout the time today, and maybe you just want to jot this down, but this is sort of the point for today. It's that if you really want to experience the extraordinary, you got to be willing to leave the ordinary. And so I think, I don't know about you, but you ever get in the date night rut, for those of you that do the date nights? Like, you just kind of do the same things? Like, it's just kind of an ordinary experience, like, where do you want to go eat? I don't care. Where do you want to go? I don't know. Where do you want to go? I don't know, right? And then, like, finally somebody breaks down and says a spot, and they're like, oh, well, anywhere but that, right? And then you're like, are you serious? Come on, right? And so in the middle of this, like, you go and you have dinner, and then, well, what else are we going to do? We don't have any kids with us. Where are we going? What are we doing? I don't know. What do people do that don't have kids? Like, what do you do? Do you go to the movies? Okay, well, what movies are playing? And then somehow you end up at Target, right? And it's at the end of the night, you end up at Target for your big date night. Like, this is awesome. I mean, this is what happens to us. And so we were wrapping up our dinner time, and we're like, you know what? Let's leave our ordinary rut. Let's do something extraordinary. And so we're in the car, and we're just like, 2 young teenagers. Like, where are we going? Like throw caution to the wind. And my wife was like, do you know of any dance places we could go to, right? And I'm like, I don't know. Let's type it in. So about 10 years ago, Katie and I decided we were going to take a shag dance class at the community college. And so it was awesome because we were the youngest ones by 75 years in the class. It was phenomenal. But I just want to say, if you need marriage counseling, do a dance class together. Because if not, you'll need it after. And so anyway, but it was fun. And it's shagging is one of those things, like, you have no coordination at all. You can shag. It's still good. Like, if you can be 95 years old in a pair of loafers and you can still shag, because basically you're just walking while you hold hands. And so it's awesome. And so I type into my phone, I'm like, let's leave the ordinary behind. Let's do something extraordinary. And so I find Lynn's Dance Club, right? Like, it's on Google. It has like 3 reviews. I'm thinking, this could be good. It's 16 miles away. Let's go. It's off of Tryon Street. And so we drive down, and we're like, we have Carrabba's in our belly, and we're like driving down and we're going to shag. And so I call the place, and sometimes I just like to make my wife laugh. You know what I mean? Because long after all this sveltness goes away. Don't laugh that much. That's not that funny. But long after, I'm really not, I'm still not in shape. But whatever. Long after my health goes, if I can make her laugh, she's still going to love me, right? And so I call, and sometimes when I call people I don't know, I like to use fake voices. And so I'm asking them about their policies, and it's like, y'all have a cover charge, and it's like, how late do y'all stay open? Because I like to tear it up, or whatever. And so I'm on the phone, she's laughing, and they're like, yes. And I'm like, you have a dress code? I was wearing shorts, and thankfully they did allow shorts. And so, like, we roll up into the place, and it looks a little sketchy. It's like right beside a gas station, and there's like all this other stuff. But there's like these really nice, expensive cars, It's like Mercedes and Lexus and all these other things. In the parking lot, everybody who steps out is like 85. And they're like wearing Rolexes, and they're like ready to cut a rug. And so I roll down the window, and I'm like, hey, is this a good place? And this guy comes up to the car, and he's like, well, sure, there's no riffraff allowed. And I'm thinking, this is, well, until we walk in, right? I mean, this is like, and so I'm like, all right, we've got to leave the ordinary behind. But my wife has already said, like, listen, if this is not going to be our scene, we're going to walk in, we're going to walk right back out. And I'm thinking, I don't embarrass easily. That's like a flaw that I have. And so We open the door and look, and it looks like a 75th high school reunion in the house. And but they're moving, they're kicking, and it's like, and Katie's like, you know what, if we do this, like you're not dressed, like everybody's dressed to the nines, everybody looks awesome, and they're in there like professionals, and we're like, we know 3 steps. And I'm like, well, you know, I mean, but it is shag. But so like we're getting ready to walk, and she's like, we're not doing it. And so we turn around and we walk out, and I'm like, come on, babe, this could be fun. Like, it's okay. Like, it's fine. And I was wearing a ball cap, and it says no caps allowed. And so I'm like slicking my hair over, you know, like trying to, I got hat head galore, you know. That's why it looks like this today. And so anyway, thanks, Doug, for throwing me under the bus. So anyway, like we walk in and we see it, and it's just like, no, okay, this is not going to be it. So we walk back out, and so I'm looking up at the screen. They have a little bulletin board on the outside as a calendar of events. And so I look at yesterday, and it's a Garinger High School reunion. That's why it looked like a high school reunion. And then it's also Jerry's retirement party, all right? And so I'm looking at this, and I tell my wife, like, this is where, you know, I just try to make her laugh. If we're not going to go in and have the extraordinary experience, we should at least have the extraordinary experience in the parking lot. And so I tell my wife, come on, you know Jerry's going to be so upset if we don't go to his party. Jerry's been wanting us to come forever, right? And so we're walking out into the parking lot, and this lady pulls up in her like really outrageously super nice Lexus, and she gets out. And so I just open my mouth because I'm not embarrassed. You guys going to Jerry's party? And my wife said, shut up, don't say. And I was like, it's right over there. And she said, we know. Like, they're like, we know where to go. This is where we know Jerry. Like, do you know Jerry? And so, like, we end up sitting in the car, and I'm like, come on, you sure you don't want to go? And so every person that walks by, I'm rolling down the window, like, talking to them about Jerry and about the party. My wife's like, if you roll the window down one more time. You know, but she's laughing inside, so I know it's not really bothering her too much. And so we get to the end of this deal, and we're ready to leave. And so I roll down the window as we're kind of cutting out of the parking lot, and there's a dude out there getting ready to light up a cigarette. And so I just yell out to him. He's there with his wife. And I said, hey, are you guys here for Jerry's party? Oh, yeah. And I said, could you please tell Jerry we are so sorry. We had a family emergency. We're not going to be able to make it. And then rolled the window up and peeled out, right? Yeah. So I'm just imagining people walking up to Jerry. These people were here in the parking lot. They said something about a family emergency. I don't know. And Jerry's like, that must have been Uncle Ronnie's kid. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? So, but here's the thing. If you want to have ordinary things, then you just keep doing what you've always been doing. But if you want to step outside of ordinary and experience extraordinary things, you got to be willing to leave the ordinary, right? And it's like that for marriage. It's like that with parenting. It's like that with finances. Like, it's like, I just don't know why we don't have any money at the end of the month. We keep doing the same things we've always done, and we keep coming up short at the end of the month. And it's like, that's a pattern, right? Albert Einstein calls that insanity, doing the same thing, expecting different results. We just call that ordinary lives, and that's how we do things. And so we just are content to stay in the ordinary. But if you really want to experience something extraordinary, you got to leave the ordinary stuff behind. And I want to tell you, it's like that with God. It's like that with God. He comes to you. You don't come to him. He comes to you. And here's what he says. He says, I know you. I want you to know me like I know you. It doesn't matter what your past is. It doesn't matter what you've done. I love you as you are. You don't have to explain anything away. Like, I've already taken everything about you into account, things you don't even know about yourself. And I'm coming to you saying, I know you. I want you to know me like I know you. But there's one thing that has to happen first. You've got to be willing to leave the ordinary so that you can really experience the extraordinary. And so this is what happened for Abram. I want you to see what happens to him in Genesis 11, verse 27. Okay, so here's what happens. This is sort of the story of Abram's family tree. Now, these are the generations of Terah. That's Abraham's dad. Terah fathered Abram, Nahor, and Haran. He's got 3 sons. And Haran fathered Lot. Now, Haran died in the presence of his father Terah in the land of his kindred in Ur of the Chaldeans. This is such a sad deal when a child dies before the parent, right? And so this is Abram's brother. He's experienced that. They're all together. They're living as one big family in this town called Ur. And Ur was an urban metropolis. Urban metropolis. I said it first service. I didn't even know I said it, and somebody laughed. I was like, I'm writing it down. All right, so Ur was this urban metropolis. They had over 250,000 people in the city. They were mathematicians. They were an advanced culture. You can go back and you can find things about the land of right? And they were able to do geometry and all sorts of architecture things, mathematics in their heads with no calculators, believe it or not, all right? And so it was this urban culture, but they were totally pagan. They worshipped one goddess, and her name was Nana. And so it was the moon goddess. And so they had this temple, this ziggurat that was built. It was this temple to this false god, Nana. And so here's what they thought. They thought that every time there's a crescent moon, the new moon in the sky, they thought that's Nana riding her boat across the sky. And so this is the god that they worshiped. And so here's this guy, Abram. He's 75 years old. He's never had any sort of experience with God. He's never been to a synagogue. He's never been to a church service. He just doesn't know anything about the one true God. And his dad says, all right, we're going to pick up and we're going to move everything. Now look at what happens. Verse 29. So Abram and Nahor took wives. The name of Abram's wife was Sarai, and the name of Nahor's wife, Milcah, the daughter of Haran, the father of Milcah and Iscah. All right, it was his niece. That's a little strange, but we'll just keep on moving. We don't have time for that right now. Now read this way, verse 30. What does it say? Now Sarai was what? Barren. She had no child. Now Terah took Abram, his son, and Lot, the son of Haran, his grandson, and Sarai, his daughter-in-law, his son Abram's wife, and they went forth together from where? Of the Chaldeans to go to the land of what? Canaan. But when they came to where? Haran, they settled there. And the days of Terah were 205 years, and Terah died in Haran. Look, they had this plan. You can see on this map, they started in and they were going to go all the way to Canaan. That was the plan. But somewhere along the way, they decided to settle. Have you ever done that in your life? You ever had these great plans, these great aspirations, these great hopes, great dreams, and then somewhere along the way you decided, I'm just going to settle right here. Maybe it was like that for you in a relationship. You were like holding out hope and, I'm going to be with this kind of man, you're right? But then like something starts happening and all your friends are getting married and all the stuff and all your friends are having kids, and then all of a sudden you're like, well, he's got a breath and a pulse. And then you just, I'll settle and then I'll change him. That always works great. Yeah. Right? Maybe for some of you, you settled with your job, right? Like you had these ambitions. You had this thing, like this is my path. And by the time I'm, 65, this is what I'm going to have, and this is what it's going to be, and I'm going to be president of my own, whatever it is, right? And then somewhere along the way in your 20s, you're like, I don't think that's happening. I'm good. I'm just going to settle right here. This happens in people's relationships with God too. They understand God knows them and God's pursued them, and they say, yes, God, I want to know you like you know me. And then they start out great, and then they just kind of pause. That's like they just settle because they know they've got a relationship with God and they believe they're going to heaven when they die. And so, what's the sense in continuing on this adventure? Everything's just kind of good. I'm just going to settle down here for a while. And so this is what these people did. They still worship this false god, Nana, and they did that there in Haran. And so they have no clue about who the real God is. And as a family, they plan on going to Canaan, but they only go about 500 miles to Haran. They don't go the other 500 miles to Canaan. Now look at what happens after Abram's dad dies. Look at what it says. So Abram pursued this guy named the Lord. Is that what it says? No, of course not. You don't run after God. God runs after you. And look at what he does. Now the Lord said to Abram, go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I'm going to show you. I love this. We don't know how the Lord showed up. I mean, the only experience that Abram has is going to this temple and making sacrifices to the moon goddess. And somehow, some way, he hasn't sought a relationship with God at all. God somehow pops up onto the scene and either speaks where Abram can understand, or God shows up through an angel or whatever. We don't know exactly how they first hear the voice of God, but God shows up on the scene and says, hey, it's time for you to go. We'll go where? I'm not telling you that. Well, how long am I going to be gone? Forever. Well, who are you? I'm the Lord. And he tells him, he says, it's time for you to go. It's time for you to leave all this ordinary life. I mean, to leave these gods, I want you to leave these practices. I want you to leave this town. I want you to leave your family members who aren't going to go with you. I want you to leave it all, and I want you to go. Now, you know, if that's you and you're 75 years old, what are you thinking? Are you thinking, man, she made a bad pot of chili last night? Sarai, listen, like this is crazy, right? Are you having a conversation with yourself, trying to talk it out like it must just be indigestion? Surely God wouldn't want me to leave all of my family. Surely God wouldn't want me to leave and go somewhere else. Surely I'm not supposed to do this, right? But this is not what Abram does. God shows up in such a way that he can't deny. He's like, I have never had a conversation with Nana. I mean, I've worshiped her, but I've never had any sort of personal experience. And now this God, the one who calls himself the Lord, the ruler of everything, like he's been personal with me and he's talking to me. Now look at what he says, verse 2, the next one, where it says, verse 2, and I'll make of you, what? What does he say? A great nation. And I'll bless you and make your name, what? Great, so that you will be a blessing. Look at this. He comes to him. Now, what do you need to have a nation? Kids. And he's 75. And how many kids does Abram have? 0. So here's God, this God he's never met, who invades and upends his life and says, hey, I'm the real God. I'm the one who's personal with you. I know you. I want you to know me like I know you. I'm tired of you in this ordinary existence. I want you to leave it and go to something extraordinary. And here's the thing. I'm going to take you and I'm going to lead you to a place that's totally different. A different language, a different people, a different place. And you're going to have to leave everything. But here's the deal. I'm going to make you great. That sounds good. Well, I'm going to make you a great nation. How's that possible? I don't have any kids. I'm 75. And he says, I'm going to bless you so that you can be a blessing to everyone else around. Did you know that's why God chooses to bless you too, right? It's not just so that you can have stuff. He blesses you so you can be a blessing to other people. Look what he says, verse 3. The promise goes further. It was a big deal to be without family. Family was your protection. Look what he says. I'll bless those who bless you. Him who dishonors you, I will what? Man. And in you, all the families of your region will be blessed. Is that what he said? In you, all the families of the whole earth are going to be. Do you understand what he's saying? I mean, like, what if God comes and says this to you? Hey, I know you haven't sought me. I know you have no clue who I am, but I know you. And I want you to know me like I know you. You're in this ordinary life. I want you to leave that whole life behind. I want you to turn to me and follow me now. I'm going to be your personal God. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make your name great. Do you know the event that happened in the Bible right before this? Like a few hundred years before. It's the one recorded right before this story of Abraham. It was the Tower of Babel. Do you know what they said? We're going to make our name great. And so God said, no. And he scattered them all. He's like, you're not the one who makes greatness. I am. And so now he looks at him. He's like, you're not going to make your name great. I'm going to make your name great. I'm going to make you into this great nation, and the entire world, every people group is going to be blessed through you. What if God made you that promise? Would you believe it? Would you believe he's the blesser? That he's the provider? That he's the protector? Would you leave at 75 all that you've ever known? Now look at what Abram does. I love this, verse 4. So Abram has a conference with all the people in his house. Is that what he says? There's no talking about it. It's a done deal. We're going. So Abram went, and he did as the Lord told him. And Lot goes with him. Anybody have a tag along in your life? Right? Like this is, Lot's like, sounds fun, right? And he comes with him. Look at what he says. Abram was 75 years old when he departed from Haran. And Abram took Sarai, his wife, Lot, his brother's son, and all their possessions that they had gathered and the people that they had acquired in Haran, and they set out to go to the land of Canaan. Now, any of you ever moved homes before? Yeah? Anybody? Anybody ever moved cross country? Yeah. All right, a few of you. That's an awesome experience, isn't it? No, it's not. It's like purgatory on earth, isn't it? And so here's the deal. God tells Abram, I want you to take everybody that's part of your big extended family, and you're going to go. Now, we don't know exactly how many people Abram had, but we know he was a pretty wealthy guy. And when Lot gets in trouble a few chapters later, Abram is able to muster 318 men who are of fighting age inside of his household. And he takes them to go rescue Lot. So I want you to think about this. Let's say each of those people have a spouse. Maybe they have a kid or two. I mean, we're talking over 500 people that Abram comes out and makes an announcement. Hey, guys, we're moving. When are we moving? When? Tomorrow. Where are we going? I don't know. Well, when are we going to be back? Never. Well, how do we know to get there? I don't know. Well, why are we doing this? Because a God you've never heard of came and spoke to me in the middle of the night, and I believe what he said is true. Can you imagine being those people? I guess we're along for the ride, right? And so look at what happens. Verse 5. So when they came to the land of Canaan, Abram passed through the land to the place at Shechem, to the oak at Morah. And now look at what it says. Read this with me. This is so fantastic. At that time, what? The Canaanites were where? Okay, like I'm just picturing in my car what's going to happen when we roll up to this spot that God says, hey, here it is. You've gone 500 miles. Way to go. You kept a caravan of over 500 people together without anyone losing their mind to walk 500 miles. And now you're at your destination and the crowd goes wild. Right? Like, and everybody's pumped to be there. And as soon as you get there, they're like, but wait, there's other people already here. Like, you roll up onto the scene and people are already in houses. There's already people on your spot. I can just imagine how that conversation goes. You sure you got the right directions? Right? Like, this is, are you sure? Like, I know, I'm just saying, right? Like, in the middle of this moment, like, it's like, no, this is it. This is where God, but there's already people here. Now, look at what it says. Verse 7, then the Lord, what? Appeared. So he's heard God's voice, but now he gets to see God. That's a cool progression, right? So the Lord appeared to Abram and said, to your offspring, I'm going to give this land. All right, so it's not for me. It's for offspring I haven't had yet. Okay. But you're still going to make my name great. And you're still going to give me this land. And you're still going to bless the whole world through me? Yep. Now look what he says. So he built there an altar to the Lord who had appeared to him. You know, this is like the only altar to God there is. Everything else is an altar to false gods. And he's like, I can't go to these places and worship the one true God. It doesn't seem right. I've got to build something new. I've got to leave the ordinary and I can experience the extraordinary. So he builds this brand new altar and says, this is only for the one true God. And he worships him there. Even though it hasn't come to pass. Even though he doesn't have any kids. Even though he doesn't have the land, it's not his to possess. He still worships God, look at me, while he waits for the promise. Some of you need to hear that in here today, right? It's like you believe that something's going to happen. You believe that you've been waiting on God to fulfill this thing for you. And you're like, but God, it hasn't happened yet. And he's like, well, still worship me while you wait. Worship in the waiting. Now look at what happens. He says yes to God. Look at what it says, verse 8. So from there he moved to the hill country on the east of Bethel, the house of God. Pitched his tent with Bethel on the west and Ai on the east. And there he built an what? Altar. Another altar. This guy's worshiping wherever he goes to the Lord. And he called on the name of the Lord. And he journeyed on, still going toward the Negeb. Look at this. Can I just say something that's super honest today? Some of you are like waiting for a word from the Lord, or some of you are waiting for like, if the band just plays my song, that's my jam. And on that jam, I totally get the chills. And I know it's the presence of God. And so whenever I hear that song, then I can worship. I'll put my altar down there because they're playing this song. And then I'll be like, woohoo, I know God's here because they played my song, right? Some of you are waiting for that like provision of God. And so here's what you're saying. Well, when God shows up, then I'm going to worship. When God fixes my man, like when he realizes he's bumped his head and then he gets his act right, then I'm going to worship the Lord. Like when God shows up and changes my kids, and then they'll actually respect me and they'll obey the first time like Abram did. Oh my gosh. Then I'll let out a shout of praise, right? And I just want to tell you, listen, that is so new believer-like. mean, that's what Abraham did the very first day. God speaks, he worships. God appears, I better build an altar. But see, the longer he knew God, even when God didn't show up, even when there wasn't some sort of supernatural appearing or supernatural word, or even when things hadn't changed, he's like, guess I better build an altar because God's worthy of worship. I'm not going to wait until he does something and then worship. I'm just going to worship him because that's who he's worthy of worship. He knows me, and he's invited me to know him back. And so if I really want to leave the ordinary for the extraordinary, I'm not going to wait until he pops up on the scene in worship. I'm going to be in the midst of worshiping him all the time. Wherever I go, in the car, I'm worshiping. When I'm at home, I'm worshiping. Whenever I'm at work, I'm worshiping. Everything I'm doing it as an act of worship to God, because I don't have to get the chills. I don't have to hear this song. I don't have to go to this place. I don't have to watch this video. I don't have to be in my C group. I don't have to be in this great time where people are laying hands or praying. Every moment is a moment of worship because that's what he's worthy of, right? And so he just does the altar, and he's like, if God shows up and she gets pregnant tomorrow, I just want him to know I've been worshiping him the whole time that I waited. If God shows up and clears out the land of the Canaanites and it's mine tomorrow, I just want him to know I've been worshiping the whole time that I've waited, because that's what he's worthy of. He knows me. He's personal. He's not like these false gods. I didn't have to do anything to earn his love. I didn't have to do anything for him to come and seek me out. I didn't have to be good or go to church or do anything to please him. Just out of the overflow of his love, he looked down at me. I wasn't great. He was just gracious. And he looked at me and said, I know you. Would you like to know me the way I know you? It's not about a performance. It's that he already loves you and he knows you and he's invited you to know him back. And so he's worthy of worship. And so that's what he does. He worships while he waits. Let me just ask you, if you look at your relationship with God, would you say it's extraordinary right now? Or do you feel like it's sort of in the ordinary place? Maybe you're waiting on God to move something or fix something or do something. And I just want to tell you, listen, do you know all the Christian life is? It's just saying yes to him. It's just saying yes. Yes, I want to know you. Okay, well, yes to personal time with you. Yes to prayer time to get to know you better. Yes to community. Yes to serve. Yes, whatever you tell me to do, God, I'm just going to say yes because you know me and you want me to know you like I know, like you know me. He says, that's the secret to living an extraordinary life. It's always saying yes. I love this story. I'm going to close with this. I love this story. Anybody know the author Bob Goff? Anybody know the author Bob Goff? All right, and so in one of his books, I love this story that he tells. Bob is one of these guys who believes that life is an adventure with God. And when you say yes to God, he continually gives you more things to say yes to, and you just kind of see where it goes. And so if you've never read any of his books, look him up. He's a great, fantastic writer. But he tells this story. He and his wife live in San Francisco at the time of this story, and so they had a house that was backed by a public access that led down to the beach. And so they could see the beach from where they were, and the public access goes through their backyard. And so one of his favorite things to do was to sit on the porch and people watch. Anybody do that? Like I was doing at the club last night, right? Like just people watching, everybody strolling up in there. And it's like, all right, fantastic. And so he that's what he does. And so there was this kid who walked by, maybe in his early mid-20s. And so the kid is there, and he just stops, and he's looking straight at Bob and straight at his house. And he's like, he felt like God was saying, get up. And so his deal is, I'm just going to say yes to God, whatever God tells me to do. God's personal. He wants to know me to know him like he knows me. I don't want an ordinary life, so I got to leave the ordinary to get extraordinary with the Lord. And so he just says yes. So he gets out of his seat. He walks over to this guy on this public path. And he says, hey, I kind of noticed you're looking at my house for a really long time. You're kind of creeping me out, right? And the guy says, yeah. I get this girl, and I really want to propose to her. And your house looks so beautiful. This would be the perfect backdrop. do you think that I could do it here? I mean, I don't want to do it in the public access. Maybe can I do it in your yard? And so Bob's rule is always say yes to the Lord. And so he just felt like that's what God was saying. He says, sure, yeah, go for it. So he waits another day or so, gets the kid's name, and the kid comes back through, and he's like standing out there again. And so, of course, Bob's on the porch. He walks out, and he gets this guy. Bob, I've been thinking it would really be great if we didn't just do the proposal in your yard. Like, your back porch is so beautiful. It has this view of the ocean. Do you think maybe we could do it on your porch? And so his rule, just say yes, right? Like, yes to the Lord. Sure you can. Like, this is great. And so then the kid comes back a day or two later. I've really been thinking, you guys have such a nice porch there. Wouldn't it be awesome maybe if we could have a meal on your porch? Like, if we could have a meal on your porch, that'd be the perfect lead-in to an engagement, to a proposal. And the guy, Bob, says, hey, you tell me what your favorite dish is. My wife and I will cook it for you, right? Then he just keeps asking. So do you think maybe our friends could come and they could serve the meal to us? I mean, that would be so cool. If they saw the engagement time, that would be amazing. And Bob says yes, right? And so then he's like, well, could we maybe get some music? Like, it'd be so nice to dance together before we have the engagement. Like, wouldn't that be great? And so Bob says yes. And so then he says, hey, Bob, is there any chance you own a boat? Bob says, actually, we do. There's a little walk down. And so before he even asks, he's like, yes, right? Like, he just says yes. You can use the boat. And so by this time, Bob has said yes to whatever God has sort of asked him to be able to show love in this guy's life, that he's like along for the ride, and it's growing its own thing. He's like, I wonder what I can do that this kid hasn't thought of to be able to help make it more. He knows a guy in the Coast Guard who has those fire hose ships that set off the water cannons for the display. So Bob calls the Coast Guard himself. He's like, we're going to need an escort. And so this girl ends up, and she goes, and they eat dinner, and they dance, and then they go to the boat. And then finally, like, Bob pulls out this big Coast Guard vessel and is shooting out the thing, and then the kid proposes in that moment, right? And so he's like, how cool to be part of that story. And then every other guy's like, man, that guy stinks. Like, that makes my proposal look way lame, right? In the middle of this deal. But here's the amazing thing with God. When you start to say yes to him, he starts to ask you more things. He starts to include you in more stuff. And if you keep saying yes, you look back and you're like, are you serious? I get to be part of this extraordinary life with you? This is crazy. And it's this unbelievable adventure. This is what happened for Abram. Listen, if there's some of you in this house today, you're like, I'm too old for an adventure. I'm too set in my ways. Abram was 75. And it was the first time he had ever heard the name of God. It's never too late. You're not too far gone. Like, God knows exactly what you've done, and he looks at you and he says, I love you. I love you with a never-ending love. Jesus' sacrifice on the cross has covered every bit of your past, every bit of your present, all the way into your future. And so I just got a question. I know you. Do you want to know me the way I know you? Say yes. And we'll be in this adventure together that lasts a lifetime. Let's pray. Is there anybody in the house today that you've never done that with God? I just want to tell you, he loves you with a never-ending love. He's chasing you down. It's not that you're seeking after him. He's seeking after you. The only reason any of us love God, the Bible says, is because he chose to love us first. And so in this place this morning, I just want to tell you, it's not about walking some aisle. It's not about praying some prayer. It's not about joining a church or getting baptized or doing good deeds. Like, it's not about any of that. It's not about a magic formula. It's all about God coming to you and saying, listen, I'm the real God. You're not. You make a terrible God over your own life. And so, listen, I'm just telling you, I know you, and I want you to know me the way I know you. I want you to leave behind this ordinary life and have this extraordinary adventure with me. Are you going to say yes? Do you believe that he's the blesser? Do you believe that he can keep his promises? Do you believe that he's the one who can make greatness out of your life? If you do, just say yes to him. Just say yes to him. Right now, you don't have to pray specific words, but would you just whisper to him? Would you just say something like, Dear Jesus, yes. Yes. That's what I want. That's what I want. You're God, I'm not. You're Lord, I'm not. I want to know you like you know me. I want you to be personal. Not just like, hey, do you believe Jesus is the Son of God? Lots of people would say that, including demons. It's not just about a head knowledge of, oh yeah, there's a God who loves me. Listen, it's about a personal relationship where you know him like he knows you. You have this adventure where you just say yes to him. If that's you, and you just prayed something like that, I just want to tell you the Bible says the Holy Spirit of God has come into your life, and you're never going to be the same. And so I just want to celebrate that with you. When you came in, you heard about that response card. Put your name and address on there. Put a check mark in the top box that says, I prayed to receive Christ, and just leave that little card in your seat. Our ushers will grab that, and then this week I'll send you in the mail a book that tells you what you do now that you've started a relationship with him, now that you said yes. But there are others of you in the house today, and maybe you're like me. You've been in kind of a dating rut with God. Maybe it's just sort of you got your checklist of, well, did we eat together? Yes. Did we pray together? Yes. Did we do this together? Yes. And God's saying, it's time to leave the ordinary. I'm calling you to an extraordinary adventure. It's not about being good. It's about me being gracious. You're known, and I want you to know me like I know you. Are you willing to say yes to God, to whatever he asks you in this season? That's what made Abram's life so incredible, is that whatever God said, he said yes. Can you say that? Can you worship him while you wait? Even when he hasn't shown up and fixed your relationship, even when the healing hasn't come, even when the finances aren't there, like, can you say yes to God and worship him just because he knows you and he said he wants you to know him back? Can you worship while you wait and keep saying yes to him over and over and over and see where he takes your life? Let's step out of the ordinary and into something extraordinary as we leave our old normals and we experience freshness with God. God, would you just move in this place today? Would you show us what it looks like to live in an adventure with you, saying yes as you lead, worshiping while we wait, trusting you're the blesser, you're the promise keeper, you're the provider. And all God's people said, amen.